Welcome to Beyond Business Barriers, powered by insights, driven by strategy, and yes, assisted by AI. I'm your host, Roy MacEwen, and today's episode is part of a special series where we sit down with industry leaders to dig into what's working, what's not, and what the future holds. I'm excited to have Ryan with me today on Beyond Business Barriers. Ryan, why don't you start things off by introducing yourself to our listeners?
Yeah. Thanks, Roy. Glad to be here. I hope that I give some sort of value to you today. Name is Ryan Breckenridge, founder and principal owner of BRK Partners. We are a boutique multidisciplinary consulting firm rooted in strategy. We've got kind of three main buckets of services that we are in. Strategic planning and positioning would be the first one. Secondarily would be marketing, traditional marketing, branding, both digital, analog, print type marketing work. And the third would be communications and strategic messaging, public affairs, publicity, crisis PR, those types of services. We work mainly with small and mid-sized businesses, leadership groups, ownership teams, practitioners, and we've got a handful of larger scale clients, ones that you've heard of, that are more on the national and international scene that we do periodic work with as well. But our bread and butter is really working with the small and mid-size type companies. So no real industry vertical that we specialize in. We did at one point, and then when the world changed in 2020 and the experiential side of things paused. At that time, we were working with the U.S. Olympic Committee and a couple of NASCAR teams and working in kind of the build up to the 2020 Olympics that were supposed to be in 2020 in Tokyo. They were the 2021 Olympics in Tokyo, but thankfully at that point in time, we had already diversified our client base to not just be in a singular vertical or industry. And so kind of prophetic in a way that it worked out well for us, that allow us to survive when a lot of people couldn't. But yeah, that's kind of the nutshell of what BRK is and how we work.
And I think the big thing you hit on there too is companies that are diverse and
Nice.
they move forward through diversity, and that's what a lot of companies had to do. And I
Everybody,
mean,
yeah.
everybody had to do it. And hey, you're still around, so obviously you did a few things correctly.
By the grace of God, we're still
Yes,
rolling.
we are. So let's keep our listeners on the edge of their seats for the next 30 minutes, Ryan. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right. Can you tell us a bit about, what a typical day for
Mm.
Ryan Breckenridge looks like, if
Yeah,
such a thing
man.
exists?
Yeah. Yeah, actually it does. I knew you were going to ask me this one, so I spent a little time. I didn't want to bore you and give the generic canned
I
response
appreciate
and
that.
answer there. So, yeah. So most mornings start with, I'm not as early of a riser as I want to be and as I should be. But get up and get things moving. Typically working out with my two oldest boys who are 13 and 10. They're athletes, football and basketball, baseball players. So we're moving at some point. I'm either taking them to a workout or a practice, or we're doing something in our home garage, home gym, running, in the neighborhood type of work. Um, then next would be once everybody else is up, being my wife and then our other two kids that are 7 and 4 almost. Um, just try to be really intentional with a physical touch, hug, look in the eye, connecting moment to start their day and our day. So do that with all four kids and my wife. I'm the breakfast maker most days around the house. So making breakfast for folks, try to be in my office by 8:30. Doesn't always happen, but that's kind of the goal and the intent for me. I do like to start every day in my office. Most days I'm working out of my home office. So we've kind of managed the home we have has a private office area. So get some privacy, get some work done. Really trying to setting things up for the day, for the week, put the wheels in motion, get organized. Um, identifying what that most important task is for the day. Identifying, income producing activities, because I can get sidetracked like everybody else can on, other stuff, especially being a dad with multiple kids and family obligations and community obligations. I got to sometimes reel myself back in to focus on income producing activities. And then just being responsive to clients, proactive, delivering on work. Kind of a combination for my role in the firm is kind of a combination of both execution and filling the funnel. So delivering on the work that we've already promised, the work that we're already been hired to do, and also cultivating the funnel and seeing what's coming next. Then most days, couple days a week, try to be out of the office, to be findable is kind of the way I term it. Um, so that looks very different. Sometimes it's on site with clients. Other times it's in a public spot, community activities that are going on here in the Dallas area where we live in Texas. Um, so trying to be findable, um, and then trying to plan kind of the next day in pencil combo of pencil and pen, some things that are non-negotiables that either have to get done or meetings that are set, and then being flexible and fluid with what comes. As a business owner, there's things that pop up that don't expect. There's things that pop up that are crisis situations for clients. So trying to find ways to stay flexible and fluid for them, to give them what they need in crisis is always tricky, and got to be on the A game for that one. And then usually end the day, most days of the week, either carpooling daughter to gymnastics. I coach both my boys, both their football teams and baseball teams. So we're at practice or games far too often than we should be. Um, but it's great fun for us. And so that's kind of how we finish the day. And then dinner, bed, and try to get a little bit of relaxing, but that doesn't happen as much right now. Maybe
You
the
don't get
summer will bring
relaxing
that.
with the kids? Come on.
Yeah, but that's kind of a typical day. I don't know. I need to go to bed earlier. I need to read more. But you know, some
I think
days,
fatherhood took over on those aspects.
there you go.
You'll get your time off later.
Yeah,
You'll reap the rewards later too.
yeah.
Uh, One thing that you mentioned, and I find a lot of businesses that have been able to continue and grow and show profit is something you said. You used the word proactive, and
Mm,
proactive versus a reactive. You know yourself that if you can do something in a proactive manner, the efficiency's there because it doesn't take a quarter the amount of time because there's a problem, but there's no adverse effects of that problem if you hit it proactively. And I think that's one key thing that I've seen with businesses that have been able to thrive. And I believe that's something that you agree with.
yeah, I do. I think what that does really too, it allows us to be purposeful in what we're doing. Um, you know, there's times when we always can't always do that. I get that. Reality doesn't allow that to happen. In a lot of cases, however, we're trying to be just the same things that my wife and I are trying to instill in our kids and the boys that I coach, like let's have a purpose, let's have a vision, let's have a plan. Um, let's be really good at a few things. We
Absolutely.
don't have to be great at everything, but let's be really good at a couple things on repeat. And that only happens with purpose and preparation. So, um, yeah, I hope that adds a little bit of color.
Oh, absolutely.
But
I
yeah,
mean, truth and honesty is greatly appreciated. That's what I try to share with people too. And well, let's shift gears a little bit, Ryan.
you bet.
Now, what major trends or changes are you seeing in the industry right now? I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about the thing that happened before, but we're talking about daily things.
Man, yeah, good question. This has probably been on my mind, and especially in my industry, especially when you talk about the creative services, the strategic planning services, the communications services that we provide. My tract, and if I were to give anybody advice on this, it would be start working somewhere where you can learn how to work, where you can learn how to be a professional, where you can learn how to master that craft. Um, and then, and this gets back to your question on the trend, is people like me who have done that for 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years, and then if you're, have that entrepreneurial bug or want to run your own show, you launch out and do yours. And I think with that, to answer your question, is really kind of a rise in small. Smaller is good. It's growing. There's a lot of people who are had my career path that work big and then they go small. And so that's kind of a thing that I have to have an eye out towards, to plan for, and to know that, we're up against the competition that we're up against. And sometimes it's the big dogs, the big people with, several hundred people, and then other times it's guys like me that have two, three, four, five people that are working together. So small is kind of one of the things that I've seen. I know that Small is the New Big. It was a book that Seth Godin wrote, and published like in the early 2000s, mid to early 2008, 9, 10, because I read it then. I think that's still true. I think we're still seeing that, and at least in my industry, I feel like we're dealing with a couple of new economies. Excuse me. Here in the United States, we just went through an election year, with the reelection of President Trump, and you know, typical path in those election years is, things go on hold. Excuse me. And they did. A lot of people just refuse to make big decisions or big investments. They want to see what the outcome of what that election cycle looks like. And that certainly proved itself in 2024 and to kind of start Q1 of 25 here. Um, and then with the tariffs and stuff, again, I can only speak to what's going on here in the States, and how it affects the folks here. But tariffs are certainly things that right now are people are dealing with and bracing with and learning how to, what's our pricing structure look like, and inflation and all those things. So all that matters, even though we're in the services business. I'm not, buying and selling wood and steel and building materials, but my clients
Right.
are, and so we got to factor for that. AI is certainly, the AI disruption and wave that's come along is started, and it's here, and I don't foresee it leaving. So that's both a positive and can be a negative as well. And speaking of that, with AI, it gives great opportunity, and for people like me, not just for what I do, but I feel like how we operate, and me just personally, um, I feel like it's a really great opportunity for us to take a market hold and through our relationships, whether they're existing or ones that we can cultivate and create. I feel and I firmly believe that, the key to business and success in life is your relationships. And that's not going to go away with the invention of AI and how that becomes more and more of a norm in society. So I just think that we as our firm, and me personally, we have tremendous opportunity right now to capture some of the market that we normally wouldn't maybe get, because we're not reliant solely on AI and things that are more automated and digital in nature. Because I think the five senses still matter. I think consumers still they want the digital component. They also want to feel it. So the print still matters. T-shirts and hats and branded apparel still matter. We do that as well. It's kind of a side business that we have, and that still matters to companies and brands, especially in the branding game. The more touch points that you can have, exposure and awareness for your company, for your brand, for your products, the better. And so, um, again, the five senses still matter. The human element still matters greatly. And so I feel like that's a really great opportunity for BRK as we move forward, and for us. And so we're kind of banking on that. Obviously, there's other things that we're thinking about right now as well, and how that's going to impact business and our success. But I guess that's kind of the short answer on what I'm seeing really as trends right now within my industry.
Now, obviously, it's affecting everyone, with the changes that go, but we always go through changes. It impacts our growth strategies. Our business models have to be
Mm.
changed. Like in the last year, how many times have you made alterations to your business model?
Boy, it seems like every 18 months there's some sort of shift that we make, and it's probably more often than that if I really broke it down on the calendar. Um, but again, going back to the smallness, that's an advantage for small. Small shops and small consulting firms, whether or small seamstress shop or shoemakers. The small can pivot quick. We can make adjustments and move move kind of on the fly. Like I said about earlier about being fluid, the bigger shot. Yeah, but we can be nimble and move on quickly. So yeah, we do. We have to.
Oh, that's probably the straightest and most honest answer that I could have probably expected, Ryan.
Good.
So let's zoom in a bit here now. Obviously, you're still moving forward. You're still thriving. So what's working well in your business right now?
Wow. Um, Man, I think the biggest thing that we have going for us right now is it's kind of our mantra. We find a way to win. No, we don't win. We don't win them all. We don't win every pitch. We don't win all books of new business that come our way. But that's our heartbeat is figuring it out. Figure it out. We got to find a way to win this project. We got to find a way to win this one for our client. We got to find a way for them to have success. Success is our number one metric for not for us, but for our clients. And that looks really different um, for every client that we have. We don't have any clients that are the same where we do the same work for them. So this is when I talk about kind of the multidisciplinary. We're doing all kinds of different stuff, and so it just requires a kind of a grit and a focus and a desire to find a way to win. So that's working the best for us right now. You know, referrals for us to grow. Referrals are critical because a lot of what we do is pretty hard to really wrap up on a website that describes services and how we've differentiated really from competition and from other firms that are out there right now. So, we're trying to find a way to lead our clients to a path of success, and we do that by becoming trusted external partners, as we like to call ourselves. Um, and we're working with leadership teams, like I said, with practitioners, senior level people that have been doing this work for 20, 30, 40 years, and folks that are starting out that are running hard, learning their industry. And we get a chance to kind of help shape and influence how they can do that, because we've done it, we've had to do it ourselves. So um, I think, really the last thing I would say on what's working well for us is we really value the initial month of an engagement. So if we bring on a new client, I try to make this a rule. Um, Try not to turn away business either because of it, but try to make it a rule that really in our first month, we spend that time totally getting immersed in their business, in their category, with their competition, with their business objectives, and then we get really deep intelligence from them, and then we have a deep, deep understanding of what they're after, where they're trying to go, where they're going, what the SWOT analysis, all the things that come with that. We add on a piece that I call just uncertainties and certainties that go along with the SWOT. So we really, really get smart with what they're trying to do and what their business is. And that helps us be a long-term partner for them, because they're invested in and getting us up to speed. We're up to speed on what's going on. And then more times than not, I'll have this conversation where they came into a meeting or a series of meetings and thought this is going to be for them. We're going to try to benefit BRK here and tell them. And what ends up happening is they say, hey, we really needed this for us. We're unified and going in the right direction, the same direction. We've rearranged some seats on the bus here. We're now all in the right seats. We're going in the right direction type of analogy. But it really does work. I mean, finding and creating unity of vision, unity of culture, unity of what the objectives are. So we understand it, they understand it, and then all of us move forward together. It's proven to be a pretty good win-win for both, for
Yeah, it
us and for our clients.
sounds like a philosophy of camaraderie and partnership more than
Yeah,
anything else. Yeah, so it's important, and that's why a lot of businesses do survive, is because they care about what they're doing, and they take that same care for the people that are coming in with them
yeah,
to to carry that on, and that's incredibly important. Now, on the flip side of that, with uh, do you find that there's a lot of issues that are similar and that frustrates you all the time with the new clients when they come on? Is there one particular thing that frustrates you? I know everybody gets frustrated,
Yeah.
but you have to come up with a solution when you get frustrated.
Yeah. My solution or my frustration usually isn't with once they become a client. It's in the process, the discovery process. Um, because so much of what we do that is truly what differentiates us is really, really difficult to describe. And it's really difficult for people to understand what it is until they've seen it themselves. So, without getting too specific, multiple times in the last couple of years, all things usually in the um, land development, water development, land business, real estate development work. Um, they don't think they have it. They've operated for years thinking that they don't have a need for the services that we provide them, and I get it. I mean, most of the time they don't and haven't until they get into something that's got some complexities, that's got some public discord, that's got some outcry from constituents that are vocal. I'll say vocal with their words or online. Um, and we come in. This is really the strategic communications and messaging portion of really understanding what the problems are, and then understanding what the hurdles are, and what leads to success down the path. And and a lot of times they just don't see that that's been a need, and they just think that it's going to get worked through and happen and work itself out. And then they've engaged us to help them with the process, and they say, golly, we didn't know that we needed it. We had no idea what you were actually going to do. And for two, 3/4 of the the process, we weren't really sure why we were paying you all this money to do this stuff. But then all of a sudden, wow, at the very end, it clicked and we got it. And now we have this mindset and attitude of we can't do this without you. And that's the magic, right?
That's it right
That's
there.
the objective and the magic. It's hard to describe. It's hard. Don't want to be in the business of persuasive communication to court a client, but once they've seen it and they recognize it, they're like, we got to have this at all times. And so that's part of the niche that we've carved out. I wouldn't say that it's been totally purposeful. Part of it was providentially getting backed into it and introduced to a situation that needed what we did, and we did it really well. And then we've done it for them over and over again on repeat, and they've told all their friends. So we're glad. We're
That's
glad.
absolutely. There's
But
nothing better than that.
yeah, to answer I hope that answers the question of
I,
it's
I,
really it's a frustration point because I wish that I was better at describing it. Um,
but I
and
think that's a situation where you can only teach, people can't learn. You can give the information, but it's up to them to learn. And
yeah,
I think that's just the way that humans go. I don't know what causes it, what creates it,
mm,
but I was taught long ago that no matter what I teach, I can't say you're going to learn this.
sure,
So
yeah,
that's
that's good.
now. Let's use a crystal ball here, Ryan. Let's look ahead now. Where would you love to see your business in the next 6 months and then the next 12 months?
Yeah, man. Short answer there is profitable, healthy, growing. Um, I mentioned earlier the water development business here in Texas. It's hot half the year. Texas is growing like crazy. We've got tons of land and tons of people that are moving here. Um, and we got to find a way to get water delivered to them, both for drinking and usage that way, but for, irrigation of land um, and basic infrastructure. And it's can be a challenge in some areas. And so what that requires is for the state and for, municipal regions to provide reservoirs and lakes that will, in a lot of cases, that are built huge structures, huge bodies of water. And the folks that live in and around the area, they don't get that water, and that's fine. It's piped to the metroplex, the Dallas Fort Worth, the big mega cities, Austin, Houston. Um, that's fine. It gets piped to them. What the problem there is that their land is taken, um, and they get paid for it, but it disrupts, a lot of cases, 4, 5, 6 generations worth of family land, or it's in a working ranch. And so
Yeah.
We're trying to break into the water business a little bit to help out both sides there of the equation. They're the provider, the owner, and the landowners as well, because it does affect everyone a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But the water,
Every living thing on earth needs water.
there you go.
So,
Funny how that works. So yeah, kind of like how we have found a niche there in the land business. We're trying to find that in the water business as well, and don't want to limit anything to Texas because or our region here in Texas, because what we do isn't just because of where we are, where we live. It's really the services that we provide and the solutions that we bring our clients. So, but water is going to be an issue. Whether you live in the southern part of the country or in the mountains. And so, we're trying to explore what that looks like. There's probably another vertical or two that we'd like to break into. For the longest time, I thought we wanted to be solely in the sports and entertainment world, kind of like I mentioned earlier. I'm glad we weren't, because it would have been a bad situation for us. But probably want to get more back into that category of business because one, it's enjoyable for me and for my team here. But really, I think probably the biggest part of it is we just get it. We just get that we're savvy in what that is and what that looks like and how to connect consumers with the brand and create a true resonating experience. And so I think that's probably those two areas that we'd like to find our way in somehow here in the next 6 to 12 months, and hopefully that works for us.
well, let's take a moment now, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to be magic here. I want you, if you could fix one major issue today, what would it be?
One major issue. Give me some specifics. You talking in business, in my
In your
type of world,
business, not world peace right
society
now.
at
We
large?
all want that. Yeah, yeah, we all want that world peace. And but no, just say for one thing that you could have happen in the next 24 hours, that would major issue that you could fix within your business.
Boy.
I can't grant the wish, but
Oof.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, what's the answer? Another wish every day. Uh,
No, that's in the sub clauses down at the bottom. It's not there. No.
boy. I don't know that I have a good answer. I wish one major issue.
You know why it's a wish? Because you can't work at it. That's why. Because you can't solve it because it's given to you.
Yeah, I mean, golly, I'll give you I'll give a specific example, I guess. And this is again kind of nichey for where we are working with
Well, that's what you know, so that's what I
yeah,
expect.
yeah, with municipalities and government and just the public commentary, public comment is, I feel like, from a society at large, but it also impacts business and it impacts our business, is um, this idea out there that whatever somebody thinks is right, whatever someone feels is fact, and that's not true at all times. And so um, I get that the greatest motivators for people are fear of money, and their kids. Those are the great motivators that I've identified in life. And so when there's fear factor and fear mongering that are out there, and it allows itself, it's allowed to fester and form and spread to other folks. Um, some businesses can be really hurt and in some cases ruined. We see that a lot on the PR side of things. When crisis occurs, it's not always actual fact and truth that's being presented, but it's kind of the fear and the narrative that's out there. And while that can be good for business, I think it's really bad for society. I think it's bad for the younger generation and kids that are coming up that are learning habits from adults that are not doing things the way they should. And I think it's bothersome to me, both professionally and personally, that we see kind of this continued shift, pedal to the floor mentality from a lot of people of really trying to push a false narrative for whatever reason. And so again, it's good for my business because we come in and again get paid to help clean it up. But I just I don't like it from a human element. I think it's hurtful more than it is positive. So um, probably not the best answer. Probably
I
not going to
think it
hear
was
that from
well, it
anybody
was
else,
well
but
put together, and it was from the heart. So
yeah,
I don't, that's what you know. So I
yeah.
think it was a great answer. I,
Thanks.
I, uh, I think it was great. Um, Now let's say, when you were starting out, when you're starting out, what was the one thing that you wish you had to do over with?
Ooh. I wish I would have started with um, more monthly retainer clients already in the fold. So um, we started out. So I started this business on the 2010, ran it for a couple of years, then put it on the side burner and went back to work in the industry that I was in for a couple of years. We were at the childbearing years, having kids, so that was the stable and smart thing that we needed to do. Um, and then 2017, jumped back in it full time and been in it since. So, um, I think, um, money's not important until there's not enough. And so, that, that would have been the quickest, easiest answer for me to give on that. And I do believe it's true. I mean, so a lot of firms and a lot of agencies are birthed with because of a client that they bring with them. We didn't have really that. We quickly found a couple and some of them we still work with. They've been with us for a long, long time, and we're grateful for them, and we're trusted partners to them, and they're a blessing to us, and so it's worked itself well. Um, but I think starting out, those would have been the main answer I would give you. The one that we did that I would recommend for any company, any business starting out is, and I'm counterculture here, the whole start with why um, mentality. I believe it, but I think it's second is why. You start with who, and the great brands have a tremendous sense of identity. They know who they are. And when I say identity, I'm not talking just the aesthetics of logos, colors, and typography and taglines and the stuff that feels. I'm talking about the true essence of who you are, who your business is, who you're not. Uh, you know, Defining who you are a lot of times eliminates who you're not. And so I think really the great brands who have lasting power and that have built this stable of raving fans and people who are loyal, and that they're top of mind and they're ingratiated to themselves. They have a great identity of who they are, and that attracts like-minded folks, and that attracts and that builds loyalty. And so, you know, from a consumer standpoint, if you got consumer products or a consumer brand, you really should start with that. Um, the identity is critical for who your target audience is and how you retain them. Um, but even for a services business like us, it's more than just vision, mission, values, and what's our purpose statement, and all those things. Those are all good and great, and we work on that every day. It's important. And so any company that I think that's starting out, I would really recommend strongly really identify and have a deep understanding of who you are, what's your identity, and then you move on to the why, and then the how, when, who, and that order can fluctuate and change. But the first two to me that are the most critical are the who and the why.
I think that was an incredible answer, and that's the first time I asked that question, and I'm glad I picked you to ask. That's fantastic.
Good,
Well,
thanks.
this has been an awesome conversation, Ryan. Thank you again for being so candid, thoughtful. Once I wrap this series up, Beyond Business Barriers, I'll be putting together a summary of key insights from across all our guests, and I'll definitely be sending it to you. And
Please do.
greatly appreciate everything. And
Yeah.
I'll be talking to you soon.